So yeah, March 15th will mark the 44-year anniversary of Three's Company when it first aired. So hi, and welcome everyone to our Wednesday lunch break with the Texas Apartment Association's Education Foundation series, Hints from HR. I'm Blaze Spitaleri with Gemstar Construction. You got the job, now what? Today's topic, we're going to be discussing onboarding, the process of welcoming a new hire to your organization. And we have a wonderful crew today to do just that. So joining us, we have some of the usual suspects. We have the Chrissy and Janet to my Jack Tripper, Becca Ramadi and Nicole Block.
Three's Company, come and knock on our door. Yeah.
Our special guest today, an 8-year veteran to HR, 3 years in the multifamily, a huge Beatles fan from Lurin. Please welcome Delicia De La Rosa.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me.
Now, Delicia, can you do us the honors real quick and tell us just kind of a brief summary of your organization and what role you play there?
Yeah, so Lurin has been around since 2016. A lot of what we do is guided by our mission and values. So Lurin is up and coming. We are a fast growing industry or organization in the multifamily industry. I have been a part of Lurin since July of 2020, and my role and title here is currently the Human Capital Business Partner. So at Lurin, human capital translates to human resources. And the reason that we call it human capital is because we are really deeply invested into our employees. We want to make sure that we're providing them with the growth and opportunity to excel in their professional development and hopefully stay with us for along the way.
Excellent. Now, I heard you say you joined in July 2020, so you joined during COVID. So I would like to dive into that.
Okay.
First, I do want to, onboarding is a first impression that, an organization makes with somebody. And I know, Nicole, you've made a really great reference when we had a quick discussion comparing onboarding to a move-in. Can you elaborate on that? Because I think it's fantastic for people to understand this analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome everyone to Facebook Live Land. We're talking about onboarding because it's crucial. I mean, onboarding has everything to do with your associates' engagement, success, and longevity. And if you don't give them that proper foundation, then they're less likely to stay with you. And if they are, they're not going to be engaged. And so one of the things that we compared it to when we were talking was the move-in experience. Many of you that are watching this are either in our industry or considering it. And there's been study after study that has shown that if the move-in experience goes well, then that resident is 80% more likely to renew. And I think that there are vast parallels, they're going to talk about onboarding and the move-in experience. So again, if that onboarding experience is pre-planned, intentional, and thought out and well executed, then that associate is going to renew, if you will. And they're going to be a great asset for your company. So I wanted to just kind of give you guys that parallel, because there's several companies that don't onboard, and there's several companies that are looking at it, and some of them that do. But as far as what does a process look like, I would liken it to your move-in experience. So I think that's the way we wanted to relate to it today, because we want our associates to stay and be engaged.
Absolutely. It takes a lifetime to build up that reputation. It takes a second to crush it. So you want to make sure you don't ruin it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Now, Delicia, I want to ask you this. What do you think the 3 most important things that a job seeker should know or be thinking about when it comes to onboarding?
Yeah, so I think for a job seeker that has accepted an offer, I think one of the things that they should be looking at is understanding the culture. So knowing that when the onboarding is about to happen, that they're going to get to experience what the company culture is. That's their first impression, so to say. They'll get to learn what are the processes, when their first day starts, what that looks like a week out, what looks like that, 30 days out. I think another thing that they need to also keep in mind is be open-minded. Know that, yes, you've learned a little bit about the company, you've done your research, probably looking on their websites and just, word of mouth, but also just know to keep an open mind when that onboarding experience happens, because it's going to be a lot of information. So you don't want to, give first impressions, 100% accuracy, give it some time. Let's see what's going on here. Let's understand the culture a little bit better. And then let's keep that open-mindedness as you go through your first day, you get familiar with your job and things like that. And then I think the third thing that a job seeker should keep in mind during the onboarding experience is knowing who to contact. And human capital is a great spot of knowing who to contact. It would be beneficial to have human capital or human resources very involved in that onboarding experience. So that way it creates that relationship with the employee. That way they know who to contact, and it creates an environment where they can continue to ask questions, because it's going to be a lot of information in the very beginning. So to remember everything about the company, to remember everything about your job, or where the bathroom is even, that might get a little confusing. So knowing who to contact, I think human capital is that best resource, because they can get you in the right direction.
Well, and think about this. We talked about the adage and kind of made the comparison that, we want them to retain, right? So we talk about like, we want, but they're drinking through a fire hose. And if you think about that, you can only take in so much at once. And so we want to also ensure, yes, the information is there, but how is it presented? And to your point, who do you contact when you're like, I think we talked about this, but I'm not really sure. My first 90 days are a blur. We've all been new. And I think having that human capital piece is crucial. And I think, and I don't know if Blaze will get into it later, but I would also like for you to share with us where you are in the succession. You're not necessarily a recruiter. You're not necessarily like, where does human capital fall? I think that's very special with what Lurin does.
Yeah, so as a business partner here for Lurin, when it comes to the onboarding experience, my responsibility is to make that connection with the employee. So we take the time to make sure that, we connect with the employee, we go through the whole onboarding experience with them, but that along the way, they're going to be speaking to other individuals, because it's not just human capital that's going to teach them, the ropes of their position, or if it's on a property, where they need to park, where the bathroom is, where their workstation, but it's being that partner with them. So that way they know if they have questions, or if they're not getting the information that they're needing necessarily, that they can reach out to us, and then we can fix it for them. Or we can partner with the hiring manager to make sure that they have the proper tools and equipment that they need to be successful in their job.
Absolutely. That open line of communication is so crucial within an organization too. Being able to feel comfortable enough to reach out to the people that you need to find out all that information. Now, if I can flip the switch a little bit from going from the job seeker then to the employer, what should they be thinking about when it comes to onboarding as well, when they're onboarding new hires? And maybe 3 items in that field as well, if you can.
Yeah, so for organizations, if they're thinking about either revamping their onboarding experience or just building it out from the beginning, because sometimes you just don't have one and you want to make that experience even better, I think it's understanding that it's a team effort, but a lot of the effort can come from your human capital department. Let us be that resource for you, so that way you don't have to worry about, are they going to get all the information about benefits? Are they going to know the history about Lurin? Because we want our employees to know the history of Lurin and where we've been and where we're going, because we're continuously growing. But it's really understanding that human capital is there to be a partner with them, and that we can take on a lot more to get them up to speed. So that way, all that it is just showing them how to do their job and getting them adjusted to their team. So understanding that it's a team effort would be key in that aspect, but then also understanding that we need to prepare for their arrival as well. So after they've accepted our offer, now it's our turn to make an impression on them. They've showcased and highlighted their skills and experience to us. Now we have a responsibility to make sure that we're living up to everything that we have communicated to them through that recruiting phase. And so for human capital, when I'm conducting the new hire orientation, it is one-on-one. And that's the way that we do things here at Lurin. Is we have the ability right now to conduct new hire orientations one-on-one. And I think it's just so impactful, because it's face-to-face as much as it can be. Obviously COVID, we utilize Teams a lot, so a lot of video orientations, but having that one-on-one experience creates that safe space for employees to really ask the questions that they want to ask. If they have questions about PTO or the holidays that we recognize, or, if they quickly transition from another organization and they want to know, timing on benefits. So having that open line of communication really helps out, and, being prepared and working with the hiring manager to conduct that just goes a long way. But then also before that is making sure that we have all of their access set up and ready to go. So working with other departments such as IT to make sure that they have access to, our Outlook, access to our teams. And then on our end, we're making sure that they have access to their training, because that is super important. It's really going to suck when you come in on your first day and you're supposed to do some type of training, but you don't have no login credentials or the access hasn't been set up. So organizations would really need to understand that it doesn't stop once the candidate says, yes, I want to come on board. We now then have to do the work to make sure that we're prepared to welcome them on their first day. And then I think the last thing that organizations should also keep in mind is, how are we keeping them engaged? So from the time that they accept the offer letter, or they accept the offer that we give them, to the time that they walk into that first door, how are we keeping them engaged? Are we checking in with them? Are we providing them some pre-arrival, before your day, this is what you need to know, bring these documents, make sure you park here, this is the dress code. If it's a corporate level position, what does the parking situation look like? Do we need to get them badges so that way they can get in and out of the building? Yeah. But more or less, it's just really taking that time to prepare and understanding that it's a team effort, but that human capital can really spearhead that for organizations.
Well, and liken it again to the movement experience. I think if we don't have their name badges, their, their business cards at least on order, if we don't have their access for day one for anything, whether it be email or anything like that, they're here, they're ready to go, they're ready to move in, and we don't have their lease prepared, or we don't have their keys ready, or we don't have, the apartment hasn't been walked for the final inspection, so we're going in blind. And too many times I get feedback from people in the industry that happens, and we all experience that. So again, that first impression is crucial, but to Delicia's point, the process starts when they accept the offer. And so if you're not being intentional and getting everything ready to go, then there's just so much more opportunity for error, and then you're winging it. So I think that's really key for that first impression.
And that first impression and that first knowledge for the new employer, the new hire, that they are wanted and that people are excited that they're going to be there, it helps, of course. And the opposite, if you don't have a desk and there's no place for you to sit, I mean, how awful does that feel? Do they want me there? Am I needed here?
Do they know I was starting? But I think that there's been times, and if you guys have ever had an experience similar to that, to where you drive home and you're like, what did I do? Did I join the right company? Is this who I interviewed with? And we definitely don't want them second guessing that on day one.
Right, for sure. And that's what we try to not have happen, is to make sure that their experience is something that they can remember. And then it doesn't just stop there at the first day. So, and then adding a little fun to it too, because it definitely can be and should be a fun experience. So, getting with our hiring managers to make sure that they tour the property, bring them lunch or take them out to lunch, if you can, to get to know them on a personal level, not just as a worker. But then, for a couple examples here, as far as what we do is, we have a name tag ready for them, and it has a fun fact about them. And that's just, it's a good icebreaker. And not only, when they're, working amongst team members or touring prospects, but when we're gathering that information, we get to learn a little bit more about them and have that more personal connection.
That's how we knew you were a Beatles fan.
Yeah.
Hey, Delicia, you did mention that was a lot of information. I think we're going to kind of dissect that through this, but you mentioned doing some check-ins, and I know we talked about the quarterly check-ins, and what has that done for y'all and your organization? How do you see that being a really intricate part in the onboarding process, not only from day one, but continuous?
Yeah, so we really try to make sure that our new hires don't feel forgotten. Like after day one, okay, I'm done, let's just get to work. We want to make sure that we check in with them. So what I normally do is I check with them at the 30-day mark, make sure that they have everything that they need. But our quarterly check-ins are on a department level, for our new hires, checking in with them, making sure that, you know, how's it going? How are you liking your job? Do you have everything that you need? And doing that for each and every department, because it's a great way to stay connected. It's also a great way for us, the human capital team, to, you know, deliver information that they're needing to know, things that are going on in the organization, and then also an opportunity for them to ask questions. And then they just get to know our faces that much better, you know? So it then further solidifies that environment of, I can ask questions and I know who to go to ask those questions. And that would be the business partner. That would be me.
Well, and I think as an operator, you know, we use the term form over substance a lot. Like, are we just checking a box with onboarding, or is it really serving the purpose you intended it to? And I know I keep paralleling this to our residents, but I think sometimes we have to look at it that way. But we survey the resident when they move in. We call them, we check in on them probably, gosh, every 30, 60, 90 days right before their renewal. And we're asking how it's going. And I think that with associates, if we can catch a challenge, or sometimes it's something as simple, whenever we've asked the question in the past, is that, you know, they're like, you know what, I still don't have access to XYZ.
Yep.
And it might not be tip of tongue and all the time with them, but you know what, now they're like, you know what, Delicia, I still can't get into whatever platform. Oh, well, hold on, let me follow up on that. Whereas if we never ask and that person is just sitting there and it's going to fall down on their priority list because now they're working, now they're like covering the front or covering the phones, or they're handling service requests, right? So everything takes priority. But again, it just kind of chips away at our credibility. So just asking those questions and making sure that if you do have an onboarding program, it has some sort of substantiated follow-up, then you're going to find out how you're doing on those onboarding processes.
Hey, Nicole, I got a question for you, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much here, but has there ever been anything special that has stood out to you during your career that's made the onboarding experience memorable, good or bad? And you can yield this question to the ether if you'd like.
Okay, Blaze. Okay, let me do a good one and a not optimal one. How about that? And
Beautiful.
no names. But I had a good one to where there was like a getting to know you form that was filled out on me, and they got to know all these things about me. And when I came to the office that day, my office was decorated in my favorite color. My favorite snacks were in a little basket. There was a note signed by everybody in the office. There was, so there's, again, happy fun things, streamers fun. Just again, they knew I was coming, right? And then I'd also say my supervisor said, hey, you know, today's about kind of getting you here set up, check everything, make sure it works. But here's your next kind of 30 days. Let's talk about it. Put it on your calendar. Here's who you're going to meet. So we started those conversations. And so the process was very solid. Then I also had so A+ on that one. And I also had an experience where my very first day, the first thing I did was to go to a meeting. And that was the first thing on a Monday. And when I got to the meeting, no one knew who I was. And so I sat down at the meeting. I'm guessing, let's call it 10 or 12 people, including my supervisor. I wasn't introduced. No one knew who I was. And I just started taking notes, felt very uncomfortable. Again, did they know I was here? And didn't have any of my parking things. Like, again, I couldn't get into the building. Someone let me in, thank goodness. And at the end of the meeting, I started to introduce myself because I realized I wasn't going to be introduced. It was about a 90-minute meeting. It wasn't, a 5-minute regroup. And all of them were like, oh, well, we didn't know you were starting. Oh, we thought you were with the people that were presenting. So there was a group that was in there presenting to this peer group of mine. And they thought I was with that group. And so I just, so again, like was so embarrassed for myself, but also like, oh my gosh. And I would also say too, to Delicia, I know we talked about this, and I think this kind of parallels it, is that onboarding needs to be for every level. And if you're at the corporate office and you're expected to lead people, you've got to, you have to understand things fast and quick, and because you're going to be asked questions now about this. And so as someone that supported people in that role, that's that second situation. In both of those situations I gave, I was in a supporting role at the corporate office. But the second one, had me thinking when I drove home, like, oh my gosh, like because of course everyone asks you, how was your first day? How was your first day? And it just wasn't ideal. My laptop didn't work. It wasn't ready. I didn't have any of my stuff. I didn't have an office. I mean, you just think about those types of things. And it just puts a
having that human connection is really so important. It's important to, you know, how we feel going into the organization, how we feel like we're joining. Are we, you know, is there a disconnect at all?
Well, and think about this too, Blaze. Now, I know you guys know I'm really shy. I think we've identified that through this whole course. So I thought to myself, well, if I'm not going to get introduced, I'm going to introduce myself. And I think about that because I don't know that everybody would do that. You know, I don't know that everybody else would feel comfortable walking around a room of strangers and introducing themselves and saying, hi, it's my first day here and I'm Nicole Block and I'm XYZ. I was still uncomfortable doing that. Now I knew I had to in order to learn who these people were, but I just don't know that every associate would feel the same.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's an awkward situation, and that's why we're having this conversation. So if there's anybody out there looking to improve upon their onboarding process or solidify the fact that they're doing it right,
introduce
that
people.
would be a story right there that we need to take into account.
Well, also, Blaze, I would say that, Nicole, your first story, the really positive example, was a great example of giving and sharing information. And I think we've seen that throughout this series, that the more information you can present, the more people can be prepared and can do a better job and can be part of the organization and get up and running quicker. And so the fact that they gave you some dates to put on your calendar and a look ahead, I think is really positive and something that we should, you know, really consider as people are looking at their onboarding program.
Well, and think about this, you know, you're instantly, you know, once your email is up, then you're on all the emails, right? And so I think what was great when I had that from my good experience is there was also a list of who does what, even though I haven't met with them yet. But when I see, you know, Nicole Block, I know that she is X and this is the department that she's in. So as I'm seeing emails coming through, it just helped me connect the dots a little bit faster. And so it made those meetings more productive because by the time I got to them on my schedule, I might have seen things or had questions. And then I was able to say, okay, so tell me more about this, not just, hi, I'm Nicole, tell me what you do. I mean, there was definitely more, which sometimes those are needed as well. But I felt like I was more productive faster.
Yeah, it just makes such a difference when you know who to talk to, who does what in your organization.
Correct.
And it makes you want to come back the second day and come back the third day because there is a plan of what it is that you're going to be doing while you're, you know, getting adjusted to your new role, and you're getting to pick up key members, and then you can reach out to them if you have questions.
Yeah, that second day is tough when you're questioning your choices.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we mentioned earlier, and I just kind of want to circle back to the, you know, we are in the age of COVID right now, and hopefully in the tail end process of all of that. But, you know, we obviously have been interacting just like we are right now via Zoom. I'm assuming that that's part of your process right now. What has COVID looked like to change your process at Lurin, and what will it look like once you're past this? What is the vision going forward? How is it happening right now?
So obviously right now it's, you know, video, all video, face to face. It's video on, so that way they know, you know, they have some sense of, you know, this is a face to face conversation. I think what's really going to be interesting is as we get past this COVID and we, you know, are able to go out there a little bit more, it's a good opportunity for Lurin because during this time we have continued to grow. So that way we need to go back and look at our onboarding experience and what does that look like? Does it continue? Do we need to make some adjustments? Can we go out there and do one-on-ones, physically? It's going to be a really interesting conversation as we kind of get back to that normal type setting. But I will say, whenever we do acquire a new property and we're bringing on a team, we make it a point to go out there because it's just that much more important. It's that much more. We're taking on a group of people that have been previously owned by another management company. And we want to make sure that the experience with Lurin is a great experience and that we're there for them any step of the way. Obviously, you know, we're social distancing, we're wearing masks, things like that. But, you know, we've made it a point to go that extra mile during this time.
So I'm curious to know, Nicole, maybe you can answer this for me though. I wonder what the retention rate is as like our industry as a whole prior to COVID and then during COVID. I don't know what you've seen or maybe heard in the industry, and Becca, maybe you can speak on this. but do you guys know what that's all looked like?
Well, I would probably say the numbers are going to be skewed. This is totally my personal opinion, because I think that there's so many layoffs that happened during COVID that people, for the most part, stayed where they were, maybe more cautiously. And so I think that I feel like the number is going to be skewed. So on one hand, you have layoffs that have happened and continue to happen. And then you have the people that are there that are, again, thankful to have their position and job, but maybe feel more conflicted. I feel like we'll see more movement as this unfolds out of COVID. That's just my personal opinion.
And some burnout, and probably some burnout.
Yeah. But one thing I was going to ask, though, I just thought about this when Delicia was talking, and just as a thought to be able to leverage the technology that we have. Do you guys record when you have those introductory meetings and training meetings and introduction to, hey, Nicole, this is Blaze, here's what Blaze does, and here's your convo. Do you guys record those to where that associate could go back and watch it again? I was just thinking about that, to where that might be a way for them to, I don't know, have a resource to get the data on their own. I don't know. I was just thinking about that as far as leveraging our resources. But
yeah, no, that's a great idea. We currently don't do that as far as, orientations and
because
things
the goal's
like
in person, which I understand, but I was just thinking about, how we can leverage what we have.
Yeah, but definitely trainings. I think during this time, whenever you're training someone, it's a good opportunity to possibly record or just, put it out for, for everyone to view at a later time. Like we
Correct.
utilize Microsoft Teams very heavily. So it's been a very good thing for us in getting communication out there. So especially getting the human capital name out there so they know who to go to and who to reach out to.
But to your point, Blaze, about turnover, it's going to become a real hot topic really quickly, because you're going to have now all of these, companies like Lurin, they're already kind of ahead of the game. They've been planting those seeds for a long time. So their trees are already starting to grow. The people that haven't are going to be a little bit on their heels, because they're going to start to see attrition. They're going to start to see that burnout or see other people making moves. And so I think that's why it's important to talk about this, because it's definitely coming, but it's been more of a, I think more conservative because of COVID in some cases. And then once we get more of a stable unemployment rate, we get, kind of through COVID and the economy starts to, recover, then I think you'll see more people willing to take that chance.
I do want to go back, and you're absolutely correct, but I want to emphasize on that point that you just made about recording these sessions. I really think that's something beneficial that, not only the employer, but the employee can benefit from down the line, that they have the resources, and then maybe they don't have to contact as much unless you want them to, of course.
But everyone learns differently. If they, everyone learns differently. So if they just want to go back and say, "Ooh, I remember Delicia said that one thing," they could go in and find it, as opposed to, going back and forth. So it's just one more venue.
If you're not doing it, do that and start doing it right away.
There's your tip of the day. We
just had a breakthrough, a tremendous amount of breakthrough right now. Do we want to touch base right now a little bit more on the positions of all levels and the onboarding process and what that should look like? Because I know we're getting kind of short on time, and I know we touched base on it loosely, but
I think it's important. The point that was made is that, it's not just for entry-level employees. It's not just for corporate or on-site. So this really has to be for everyone. And it's also beneficial for leadership to go through the process to understand what their employees are going through. So I think that was the main point with that. I also wanted to add that, we've talked about this quite a bit, that this is another one of these processes that you can't just check off your to-do list. Yeah. You have to go back, and Delicia, you talked about this a little bit, whether you're growing or because something like COVID happens or whatever the factor may be, you need to go back and review and update and, see if things have changed, if things can be improved, and if there's a step to add or take out. And, this has been one of the sort of reoccurring themes that I've noticed throughout this series, is that these human capital type efforts they're not one and done.
Yeah.
And don't forget to cross train too. I think that's really vital to an organization as well, for everybody to understand what the left hand and the right hand are doing, because you guys need to work together in harmony. And I think, that really speaks volumes to your company culture in general. And Delicia, it's been a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you.
This has been a great topic. You know, it doesn't have to be an archaic process at all. You know, keep it relevant, keep it evolving, and
Keep it
And
fun.
fun.
Yeah. Well, and as we talked about in this whole series, just keep asking questions, just keep going back, and, you know, things that worked 10 years ago don't work today. And if you have a process, check in on it, see how it's going. You know, if you're thinking it's going one way and it's going another way, then you have opportunity to fix it. So I think that's just like with anything else we've discussed, you know, ask the questions and then put a strategy behind it, and you'll be better.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any final thoughts? I want to thank the multifamily verse, Becca, Nicole, Delicia, and myself.
Multifamily verse.
Yeah, we did a fantastic job. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave it in the chat field. Reach out to any of us. I think we're all pretty easy to reach out to. And I hope everybody has a beautiful Wednesday, and we'll see y'all soon.
All right, be
Thank
good.
you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.